Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Mandel Kramer stars. No, not in Counter Spy. No, not as yours truly, Johnny Dollar. But in an episode of X-1 from 66 years ago today, October 3rd, 1956, the episode entitled Protective Mimicry. We thank you for spending part of your Monday with us here on this 3rd day of October, the 276th day of the year, 89 days left till we get to 2023. British Captain James Cook anchored in Alaska on this date in 1778. George Washington proclaimed the very first Thanksgiving Day. Thanksgiving Day declared officially as the 4th Thursday in November in 1863 by President Lincoln. Iraq gained independence from Britain on this date in 1932. In 1960, The Andy Griffith Show debuted on CBS. Dick Van Dyke Show debuting on this date in 1961. The situation comedy, by the way, is still in reruns to this day, primarily on streaming channels Plex, Pluto, Tubi, and it's also on Fubo by subscription and Amazon by subscription. But you can still see them for free on Pluto and Tubi, and I didn't check. It may be on others, but it is on those platforms at the moment. Cape Canaveral on this date in 1962, Mercury 8 blast off with astronaut Wally Schirra aboard for a 9-hour flight. President Nixon and Soviet Union President Pogorny ratified the Strategic Arms Limitation Treaty on this date in 1972.
These agreements mean a first step in reducing the danger of war in the world and increasing the chances of peace.
For the first time during the Cold War on this date in 1972, the U.S. and the Soviet Union agreed to limit the number of nuclear missiles in their arsenals. Space Shuttle Atlantis flew its maiden voyage on this date in 1985. East Germany ceased to exist on this date in 1990. East German citizens became part of the European Union, which later became, it was the European Community at the time. Alrighty, and in 1995 on this date, O.J. Simpson found not guilty of murder.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony upon Nicole Brown Simpson, a human being, as charged in Count 1 of the information.
Simpson would later be found civilly liable in their passing. A tiger attacked magician Roy Horn of the duo Siegfried and Roy during a performance in Las Vegas on this date in 2003, leaving him partially paralyzed. They have both since passed away. And the Emergency Economic Stabilization Act of 2008, often called the Bank Bailout of 2008, signed by President George W. Bush. Passing away on this date in history, Elias Howe, actor Zachary Scott, singer-songwriter Woody Guthrie, also Roddy McDowell, My Two Dads and Barney Miller, actress Florence Stanley, and from Psycho, Janet Leigh, all passing away on this date in history. This is the birth date of etiquette advisor Emily Post, who most people have forgotten what etiquette is these days, so there you go. Actress Gertrude Berg, author Thomas Wolfe, author Gore Vidal, singer Eddie Cochran, singer-songwriter Alan O'Day, the undercover angel Stevie Ray Vaughan, also born on this date in history. Happy birthday number 88 to musician Chubby Checker, who danced the twist and says it's still impacting people today.
Right now it's 3 o'clock or so in L.A., and in some part of the world, it's probably 8 o'clock at night somewhere, and people are going to go out and dance, and they're going to be dancing Chubby Checker. And in 3 or 4 hours from now, in any place that music is played and people are dancing, they're probably dancing Chubby Checker. I mean, the Checker effect on music is as constant as music itself.
Chubby Checker, 81 years old today, also born on this date. Lindsey Buckingham of Fleetwood Mac, who is 73 years old. From Buck Rogers and Matt Houston, Pamela Hensley is 72. Al Sharpton, 68 years old. From General Hospital in Melrose Place, Jack Wagner, 63. From Whose Line Is It Anyway? Greg Proops, 63. Motley Crue's Tommy Lee is 60. From the musical group No Doubt, Mrs. Blake Shelton, Gwen Stefani, 53. From the Backstreet Boys, Kevin Richardson is 51. From Scream and Party of Five, Nev Campbell is 49. From Game of Thrones, 300 and The Purge, Lena Headey is 49. R&B singer India Arie is 47. The younger sister of Jessica Simpson, singer Ashley Simpson, is 38. And from Smallville and The Flash, Jessica Parker Kennedy, 38. Those some of the people celebrating the third day of October as their birthday. And if this is your birthday...
Hi, we're the Four Freshmen, and we just want to say... Happy birthday to you!
And from 66 years ago today, October 3rd, 1956, X-1, Mandel Kramer stars in an episode entitled Protective Mimicry. That's coming up next on this Monday Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thanks for tuning into Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. I know some of you are not science fiction fans, but when you listen to this show, it seems dead set for Mandel Kramer in this episode of X-1 as he plays an investigator. And of course, you know, he would play a number of investigative roles, and he played some heavies along the way too. But this episode from 66 years ago, October 3rd, 1956, X-1 Mandel Kramer, Protective Mimicry.
Countdown for blast off. X-5, 4, 3, 2, X-1, fire. From the far horizons of the unknown come transcribed tales of new dimensions in time and space. These are stories of the future, adventures in which you'll live in a million, could be years, on 1,000 maybe worlds. The National Broadcasting Company presents
X minus 1.
Tonight's story, Protective Mimicry, by Algis Budrys.
Frankly, I think I'll probably have to take my expense account clear up to the Central Gallic Civil Service Board. My friends tell me to forget it. But take it from me, a rap in the credit book like this isn't easy to laugh off. Not on a grade 4 civil service pay scale. So I've made my beef out in quadruplicate and filed it. Usually a special agent in United Galactic Federation's Department of the Treasury, Investigations Division, Currency Section, doesn't have much trouble with his swindle sheet. But this one's a corker. To understand, you gotta know how they make the stuff. The Ungallic Mint is in New Geneva on Canopus 3. I remember I went around with the 40 Deci credit tour when I first joined the staff. The guide was a cute little brunette from one of the Rim stars who was later fired following an annual Pan Solstice office party. I didn't pay much attention to her spiel. She was dressed in the new Neo-Minoan style, but I got the general idea.
This is a demonstration machine, of course, but you will notice the indestructible fiber coming off that spool at the right. It goes into the slot in the machine there. Now, if you'll pass along, you see it goes between those two rollers through 6 or 7 chemical baths. No, I'm not sure what chemicals. That's restricted information. It's stamped, analyzed for flaws, dyed, and then run through this unit here. This is the most carefully guarded part of the process. The unit is removed from the plant each night and locked in the deep space vault on the satellite station directly overhead. After the strip emerges here, it is chopped into convenient lengths and carefully removed into armored cars. It is called money.
What does that secret unit do?
Well, that's a very good question. You see, the currency is non-defacable, fireproof, immune to wear, weather, and water. But the most important thing is an electronic pattern impressed into the fiber by that secret pattern. You all know when you cash a bill, it is passed over an electronic plate that reads the pattern. If the serial number and the pattern match, well, but if they don't, well, first I'll put an ordinary credit note over the beeper. There. Perfectly good. Now, a simulated counterfeit bill without the electronic pattern. Well, now, that wouldn't fool anybody long, would it?
Could anybody duplicate that electronic pattern?
Well, that's a very good question. Only the government has the equipment to put that in. Your currency is safe and sound. Don't you worry about that. Are there any more questions?
Yeah. How about a drink after the tour?
Well, Oh, that's a very good question.
It sure was. So was the answer. Well, getting back to money. The engraving, the chemical composition of the ink and the fiber would be tough enough to duplicate. But that electronic pattern snaps the clincher on it. That's why Chief Inspector Saxgard of my division looked sourly at me when I came into his office and spread a fistful of credit notes on his desk.
What's that?
What's it look like?
A handful of 50s. Why?
Put a couple of them over your beeper plate.
Okay. They're perfectly okay. What's it all about?
Look at the serial numbers.
3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 6, 7, 8, M.
Look at the others.
3, 4, 5, 6, 5... What? Let me see them.
Save your eyes. They're all the same. 14 50-credit notes with identical serial numbers.
That's impossible.
And every one of them goes over a beeper plate, quiet as a sophomore climbing into a dormitory window after hours.
Baumholzer, where did you get these?
They came into the New York Clearinghouse from a branch on Deneb 11. The manager blew his top. He called us the minute he spotted them and sent them out to us.
How about the manager? Is he blabbing all over the Bankers Club about it?
I read the Ungallic Riot Act to him. He'll keep it under his hat.
Good. At least we won't have any financial panics for a while. Have you checked these through the lab?
Well, the ink and paper is government stock, and they match government beepers. The lab plates didn't squawk any more than yours did. Now, you could spend these anywhere as long as you only pass them one at a time.
Baumholzer, you know, since the beeper plate came in, we've been sitting on our tails in this department, building up our pensions.
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
Neither would I outside this office. But you know darn well nobody can expect to counterfeit a bill and get away with it. It's only because throughout the universe there's a certain percentage of people who will try anything once, and a corresponding percentage of purblind idiots who will accept anything with engraving on it as money that we're here at all. Now, I've seen cigar coupons and crayon sketches come into this office. I've seen premium offers from household magazines, jet bus transfers, where some people would try to pick a Yale lock with a quarter of a pound of butter. Now, the only reason any queer can pass is because some goggle-eyed nudnik neglects to use his beeper plate. But I worry. For 15 years, I've sat in this stinking office and waited for somebody to invent a matter duplicator.
Well, looks like you can stop worrying. Look at those bills, identical down to the whiskey stain in the corner.
All right, Baumholzer, you call transportation and get out to Deneb 11 and find out if anybody in that neighborhood has a matter duplicator, or if he hasn't, what he has got.
I picked up the department shuttle to the satellite and made fair connections up to Deneb 11. It's a 4-day run on drive, and I get free fall 6, so I was glad to hit the port in Glub, which, so help me, is the name of the only city on the place. Deneb 11 is what we call in the department a mud ball. It's a jungle world with an atmosphere like a swatch of Harris tweed. I was smoking a cigarette when I got off the shuttle, and the air I pulled in made the smoke taste like well-decayed leaf mold. I was wringing wet 2 minutes after I left the air-conditioned port. I noticed the local costume would get you arrested on any beach in the galaxy, but it didn't matter since there's nothing titillating about pasty skin dripping with weary perspiration. I checked in with the regional office and found the resident agent tinkering with his air conditioners.
Hi, Baumholzer. You know anything about the sealed power pack on this condenser?
Yeah, if you keep banging at it like that, you'll crack the seal on the atomic shielding, and your posterity will thank you. 3 heads at a time.
Oh, I guess I better not fool with it. Now, take off your pants and pull up a chair.
I don't mind if I do. Is it always this humid?
Oh, no. In the hot season, it's worse. I'd send for a replacement part, but the fax line isn't too reliable. The last time I sent for a sealed unit, they shipped back an overaged sea lion.
Yeah, I know. I was on Polar Station on Ganymede when my heater element broke down. I faxed for 3 feet of element, and they shipped me back 3 fetal elephants.
Yeah. Well, I suppose you're here about the queer bills, huh?
Yeah. Got any lines on it?
Well, my orders will lay off and let the central office handle it. Be my guest.
Any ideas?
No. Where do you figure to start?
Well, this is the only city. I'll have to check it out. Have you got a list of authorized beeper plates?
Somewhere. Let's see here. Oh, look out.
Why?
There's a whittle fly on your arm.
Hey, how does a thing that size get through the filters?
Insects on denim are tricky. This one is a non-filterable virus in the larval stage, then it blows up to this size. Carve his initials in your arm if he gets a good bite. That's why he's called a whittle fly.
The whittle fly was only one of the darlings that made the fair city of Glub a garden spot. They had one cute little tyke called the laboratory beetle, because when he bit you, he typed your blood and followed you around for days getting refills. I had one take a sample of me as I went out the door of the residency with a list of beeper plates, and he followed me from store to store while I checked every installation in the city. The little devil would step up to the bar every once and again and take another shot of my hemoglobin. I even tried ducking into men's rooms fast, but he'd be waiting for me when I came out. Well, I slogged through Glub for 3 days and then poured myself back into the residence office. Did he come in?
Who?
The laboratory beetle.
No, they usually hang around in the hall and wait. Sometimes when I've got a poker game going, you can see 3 or 4 of the little angels buzzing around outside waiting like chauffeurs outside the opera.
Wow.
I draw a blank?
Well, I found 7 defective beeper plates, but nobody remembers any queer bills being passed. You know, who checks serial numbers? They must have come in one at a time. And the clerks at the bank always were out to lunch and referred me to the next guy. You got any lotion for insect bites?
Desk drawer.
In a way, the beeper plates make it tougher. Nobody even looks at the bills anymore. Just throw them over the plate, and if no bells ring, it's okay.
Well, how about the other angle?
Matter duplicator? I checked invoices and purchase records. Nobody's been buying electronic parts that can't account for every tube. I thought I had something. One fellow bought 12 of those giant lithium cathode tubes, but it turned out his wife was having them wired as lamp bases. Well, I better be going. I hate to keep my little insect friend out there in suspense as to cocktail time.
You got another lead?
Yeah, I found a bar that makes a Tom Collins with real lemon juice instead of battery acid. I managed to duck my lab beetle in a revolving door. He went around twice and shot out into the street, so I settled down at a table at the bar and tried to make believe that I couldn't taste Den of 11 atmosphere in my Tom Collins. I was chewing on an ice cube when I looked up.
Mr. Baumholzer?
That's right.
I want to talk to you about money.
He was a terrestrial, but he'd been on Deneb a long time because he was wearing the native garment about the size of a 5-pound sugar sack. His hair, which was potato field gray, was arranged in the old-fashioned Presley style. You know, the ancient long sideburns, duck's tail in the rear that vice presidents wear in family-style banks. His ears had little bits of bone stuck in them, and his eyebrows wandered all over his face, and he stood about 6'8". And I waited him out, and presently he spoke up again.
You are the same Mr. Baumholzer who's been going around asking all those questions about duplicate ungallic notes?
That's right. Can I help you, Mr.
Munger, Duodecimus Munger.
Now, this bid's fair to be fascinating. I was under the impression that my mission here was just a wee bit on the secret side.
There are no secrets in Glub.
Now, won't you pull up a chair, Mr. Munger?
I'm afraid I haven't time.
Well, join me in a drink.
Are you really the Mr. Baumholzer that's working on this case for the Treasury Department?
Yeah, sure. Hey, you're not the fellow that's turning out these duplicates, are you?
Well, as a matter of fact, I am.
What?
And don't move. This is a Power 30 Mistral coagulator I have.
Look out with that thing. You've got it pointed at my head.
Yes, I've got it set on high charge. It will fuse your brain solid.
what else is new?
Now, Mr. Baumholzer, stay right behind that table.
Now, let's not make any rash decisions now.
Well, I can't very well see how I could let you live.
Oh, come on. Try. All right, now drop the gun.
I'm afraid we'll be collecting a crowd.
Give me that. Don't try to pick it up.
I won't. I had something completely different in mind.
From 66 years ago, October 3rd, 1956, X-1, Protective Mimicry here on Classic Radio Theater. The news from 66 years ago today is next. Thank you for tuning in to Classic Radio Theater on your favorite station. We're listening to an episode of X-1, Protective Mimicry, as it was originally broadcast at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday, October 3rd, 1956. And in the newspapers of that Wednesday, 66 years ago, these are some of the headlines. Adlai Stevenson accused President Eisenhower last night of 4 years of words without action wherever human interests are at stake. Eisenhower's wicked nonsense crack at the Democrat brought Stevenson out yesterday with gloves off. To be called nonsensical was one thing, Stevenson said, but to be labeled wicked was another. A tally on the historic green of the Morristown, New Jersey, Stevenson said, "I'm afraid that this is becoming part of the political looseness that previously was identified with the vice presidential candidate, Richard Nixon, who always talks about opponents in terms of appeasement and communism and treachery, and words like that. I do hope the vice presidential taste for extreme and loose language is not becoming contagious." American manufacturers rang up record sales and profits in the first half of this year and headed into the fall with employment near record levels and consumer demand for goods at an all-time high. These developments reported yesterday by the government agencies, which said manufacturing corporations sold a record $146 billion worth of goods in the first 6 months of this year, nearly $10 billion more than in the first half of 1955, where the business boom was gathering force. Their profits from these sales reached a new high of nearly $8 billion after federal taxes, a gain of 9% over the first 6 months a year ago. Total employment in the U.S. was down on a seasonal basis by 700,000 in September, but was still close to the record of 66 million set in August. The drop to just under 66 million, attributed to the return of students to school. The number of adult workers remained steady. Secretary of State John Foster Dulles said yesterday there is some difference with Britain and France on the Suez Canal dispute, but 2 hours later he rewrote his news conference record to strike this out. In reply to a newsman, Dulles said the differences stemmed from an American desire to play a somewhat independent role in dealing with anti-colonial nations. Later, after editing his news conference transcript, he authorized a spokesman to report he meant to say there has been some difference. Dulles also toned down his earlier remarks that differences involve fundamental things, such as the American desire to encourage newly independent nations toward nonviolent development. President Eisenhower, who will watch the World Series opener in Brooklyn today, will return to New York later this month for a political appearance, according to the White House. Presidential News Secretary James C. Hagerty said details of the campaign visit will be worked out later, but he said it's safe to say it will be a late October trip. A determined Ohio woman has made Road Forks, New Mexico, a tiny crossroads village, the center of a search. She says she'll never give up until she finds a missing friend, her dog. The woman, 44-year-old Dorothy Locke, a teletype operator at the Fertile Atomic Energy Plant near her home in Cincinnati. In the last 9 weeks, her name and face have become familiar to people living in the dry, rugged country between Lordsburg in southwest New Mexico and Wilcox across the border in Arizona. Somewhere in that stretch of 78 miles, her dog, Mickey, was lost. She was returning from vacation last July 7th. Driving east at night on Route 86, she left Wilcox after a rainstorm passed and opened the left rear window so the dog could poke his head out to cool off. When she reached Lordsburg, Mickey was missing. She's covered hundreds of miles across the two states, no trace of me. Liberace staged his first British concert at London's famed Festival Hall last night and flopped badly. The American pianist tried hard to entertain an audience of 3,500, but many of them became bored and left early. The performance took a panning from newspaper critics. This comment by the News Chronicle critic, Liberace is no more a concert pianist than I am a Zulu princess. And those some of the day's top news stories as reported in the newspapers of Wednesday, October 3rd, 1956. On your radio, X-1, Protective Mimicry. And we'll hear the conclusion of that when Classic Radio Theater continues in just a moment on your favorite radio station. Mandel Kramer returns on Tuesday's Classic Radio Theater, playing second banana to Don McLaughlin in an episode of Counter Spy from 73 years ago, October 4th, 1943, in the case of the sweepstakes murder. Frightened witnesses gasp, murdered by a golden sword, as the counter spies investigate a phony Mexican sweepstakes ticket ring. That's coming up on Tuesday's Classic Radio Theater. Well, we wrap up this Monday edition from 66 years ago, October 3rd, 1956, Mandel Kramer starring in this episode of X-1, Protective Mimicry.
Just like in those ancient legends the archaeologists keep digging up, the ones with the hard-boiled detective and the beautiful blonde, I felt the traditional roof fall in the back of my head. As I went black, I remember thinking how odd it was that it was happening to me some 500 years after Spillane the Scrivener. I came to in the same archaic fashion with my head going around in a free orbit around my neck.
Baumholzer, are you all right?
I can't see. I'm blind. Everything's black.
Well, open your eyes.
Oh. Where is he?
Who?
The guy who slugged me. What am I doing back at your office?
Oh, some bartender brought you in. I thought you passed out from too much lemon juice.
It was a guy named Munger. Which way did he go?
Beats me. Munger? Tall feller in native dress?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you might as well forget about it.
Why?
Well, I can order a pickup on him next time he's in town. They'll sock him away in a psycho ward for a while. Forget it.
Look, I am not an old lady calling up complaining that the nasty delinquents are teasing my cats. That Munger's tied in with the queer.
Him?
He said he was the passer.
Well, that can't be. Munger.
You got a file on him?
Yeah. I get a number of complaints on him, so do the local cops. Well, I didn't want to make trouble. He's a very wealthy man.
I'll bet. What does he do?
Well, he's a merchant or something at a native village. Once or twice a year he comes out and paints the town, but a counterfeiter?
I would like to talk to him again with the Mistral in my hand.
He had a Mistral? Well, that's a violation of a municipal ordinance. You're supposed to check him at the quarantine gate.
Look, I'm not investigating parking tickets and violations of the anti-noise laws. This is a counterfeiting case. Now, do you know where I can find him?
Well, he's probably gone back to his village.
Where's that?
Out in the jungle.
All right, get out your rubbers, friend. We're going out after him. Suppose you fill your bathtub full of mud, build a fire under it, turn on the shower, and crawl in and wallow a little. Do that, and you've got a fair idea of the Denebian jungle. I went out with Hall, the resident agent, and we started off.
Stick close, Baumholzer. And visibility is about 10 feet.
I'll eat everything I can see within 10 feet. Ow!
What happened?
I walked into a tree. Help me up out of the mud. We puddled on for a couple of hours. The rain was so thick I didn't see the trees until I bounced off of them and sat down in the warm mud. I reflected as I struggled to my feet what a terrible waste. In the beauty salons of Charles of the Ritz Asteroid, ladies from all over the galaxy paid thousands of credits for hot mud baths to take the wrinkles out and make their skin smooth and caressable. And here was I getting a much more thorough treatment every time I sat down. They issue a lot of special equipment from department stores, and it all functioned perfectly. My neo-latex galoshes were fine, but stuck in the mud. My Minipower goggles and wipers kept my eyes clear, but they didn't keep me from crashing into every tree. My leak-proof sportsman's flashlight stayed dry as a bone, but powerful as it was, it couldn't light up more than 3 feet in the pelting rain. Hall, the resident, led the way, consulting a compass and a waterproof map, and finally we stopped, and I noticed that there wasn't any rain coming down on me.
It's a rain shelter. The natives build them.
Kind of them.
Well, they're on all the trails. If you go more than a day in the rain, you go punchy from water drumming on your hat.
I believe it.
Well, now, don't sit down. You'll sink in.
I don't know. Theoretically, a broader base should keep you from sinking, like snowshoes.
Well, also increases the suction.
I'll stand. How far is Munger's village?
Either 2 miles or 22. I can't read the map very well.
Hey, wait a minute. Listen.
Well, that's the rain.
No. You hear that squelching? Somebody's coming.
Oh, yeah. From over there.
Natives?
Maybe.
There he comes.
Well, we've got first pick on the shelter. It's a native tradition. First come, first dry.
Yeah, there's somebody out there, all right.
Who's there? Who is it? A friend of mine, Mr. Baumholzer.
All right, Munger. Where did you come from?
Don't move. I have several friends pointing long spears at your kidney. Shall we go, gentlemen, back to my village? I believe you were looking for it.
Munger was so intent on me that he didn't seem to notice as Hall sidled off into the darkness, and when he did, he set up a desperate cackle. He had a few of his fraternity brothers chase down the trail with spears waving wildly, but they came back murmuring some kind of a Choctaw, which seemed to carry the implication that Hall had gotten away like a big-bottomed turtle.
Well, Mr. Baumholzer, your companion's action has saved your life for a while.
Yeah, he'll bring back a platoon of Marines, and they'll reduce that village to a bullion cube.
We'll just have to hold you as a hostage in case help should arrive.
Thanks.
At any rate, shall we get back to the village?
He had about 10 natives with him, each one about 7 foot tall, with those big, flat feet that evolved on Deneb for walking in primordial ooze. They were dressed in the standard native loincloth with matching accessories, namely 10-foot spears. When, as we started out along the trail, I got a good look at Munger's loincloth, it was composed of tastefully arranged 1,000-credit notes. Well, by the time we got back to the village, the rain had stopped. The humidity, of course, was still 120%, and the only difference was that the moisture just loitered around rather than actually falling. There was some kind of a clam bake going on in the village. The natives were pounding a couple of drums, and as far as I could see, getting rapidly stinko on some kind of jungle juice that they passed around in huge gourds. They were leaping and dancing, and as far as I could tell, doing snappy sayings and fancy patter as I sat on some kind of a low mushroom and tried to ignore the 2 spears that were pressed against my throat. It felt as if a nervous barber was trying to shave me with his razor tied on the end of a 10-foot pole. After a bit, Munger strode up to me with all the dignity of the lord of the jungle, and he waved the spears a foot away, pulled up a mushroom, and sat down.
Actually, that wasn't a native rhythm at all. The original Denebian music is a kind of quiet, flute-like melody, something like Mozart.
That didn't sound very flute-like.
Yes, I know. One of the first terrestrial anthropologists out here to study the Denebs took recordings of their music, and then to be polite, he played them in a few recordings that he'd made on an earlier field trip. Unfortunately, they were from that lost rocket colony on Ceres. Their music was a degenerate ancient form called, I believe, Roland Rock. The Denebs liked it, and they've been doing it ever since.
What's the party?
They're propitiating the tree. I don't know why. It's never failed yet. But they're very conservative. They've got to go into this act every night before I can do my stuff. Lasts all night. Want a drink?
No, thanks.
Oh, I wish I had a fifth of something civilized. I've been drinking this native swamp water for much too long.
He was right. They kept it up all night, and I sat trying to figure out in which hut Munger kept his machinery to make those duplicate bills. Finally, the weak light that passes for dawn on Deneb came up, and the natives quit hollering.
Let's go, Baumholzer. I hate to keep a man in suspense. You're curious about those duplicate bills. Well, now you're going to find out how it's done.
Well, it's good of you to show me. I suppose your theory is that I'll never live to tell about it.
That's very sensible of you. I like a man who can face facts.
We walked across the mud square to the base of a tremendous tree, which I gathered was the guest of honor for last night's shivaree. I still couldn't see the connection, but I was willing to wait. The natives sat around in a deathly hush, and Munger and I stepped forward.
You notice? Nothing up my sleeves. As a matter of fact, no sleeves.
And not much arm, either.
Now, I take this 50-credit note. Care to examine it?
Oh, I've seen it, and 14 others like it.
Yes, I only use a 1,000-credit bill when the natives need new loincloths. These 50s are a lot easier to dispose of.
Oh, I don't know. I traced them to you.
Well, that was a mistake. One of my contacts got a little greedy, spent too many bills in one place. All right. Now, I used to have the natives make a loud noise, but I'll use your gun instead here. You see, I take this bill, folded, so, and so, and so, and there.
What are you making a paper plane for?
Just watch. I raise the note in one hand, I aim at the tree, and I fire your gun up in the air. Like this.
As he let fly with my gun, Munger sailed the paper airplane straight at the tree, and it sailed right into the foliage.
Now watch.
The bill came sailing back out of the leaves, and right behind it came another one. And then the air was filled with paper planes, squadrons, wings, armadas of paper airplanes, each one made up of a folded 50-credit note. They sailed out over the whole village, and Munger set the natives to collecting them and bringing them back.
There you are. There'll be several thousands of them. Look, 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 look.
Genuine. Absolutely genuine. And I suppose they'd go over a beeper plate without a tinkle.
Startling, isn't it?
Protective mimicry.
Yes, precisely. You know, I discovered this tree 6 years ago while I was attempting to evade the clutches of the law on a confidence rap. I swung an axe at it to blaze a trail, and 50 axes came bouncing back at me.
Well, I never heard of any plant developing mimicry to this extent. I know some plants and animals assume dangerous life forms as a camouflage, but this...
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not a botanist. All I know is that you scare the tree with a loud noise. You throw something at it, and it duplicates what it thinks is the danger. Well, speaking of danger, it doesn't look as if your colleague is bringing any help. Oh, I'll miss your company. Interesting. You'll be shot with your own gun.
Now, look, Munger.
Don't wriggle. I hate a moving target. What is that?
Looks like the cops, Munger, at the edge of the village.
Home holster, where are you?
We outnumber them. I'll get you anyway.
No.
You can't run away from me. I'll shoot.
I broke for the other side of the square, and just as he shot at me, I tripped over a pot and went flying smack into the tree. Well, that's about it. Here we sit in the spaceport on Deneb 11, and I'm darned if I'll pay our transportation back until I hear that the office is going to okay my expense account. Munger? Oh, he's in jail at New Alcatraz. Once he missed his shot at me, it was all over. After I fell into the tree, he didn't stand a chance against us. That's right. Us. All 168 of me. Right, Ed?
Right.
You have just heard X-1. Tonight, by transcription, X-1 has brought you Protective Mimicry, written by Algis Budrys, and adapted for radio by Ernest Kanoy. Featured in tonight's cast were Mandel Kramer, Terry Keane, Charles Penman, Dick Hamilton, and Wendell Holmes. This is Roger Tuttle. X-1 was directed by Daniel Sutter and is an NBC Radio Network production.
I did not know that Mandel Kramer played Police Chief Bill Marceau on the soap opera The Edge of Night from 1959 until 1979 on both CBS and ABC. He also appeared in 130 episodes of the CBS Radio Theater between 1974 and 1982. We have mentioned Counter Spy. We have mentioned the last year's truly Johnny Dollar. Also Stella Dallas. He was in episodes of The Shadow, Perry Mason, Mr. and Mrs. North, a number of other shows as well. And he had quite the career. Mandel Kramer passed away in January of 1989. Thanks for tuning into this Monday Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. That was X-1 from 66 years ago, October 3rd, 1956. If you miss a day, you don't have to miss a single show. You can hear all of our programs available on classicradio.stream. That is classicradio.stream. Stream our shows. You can find listings of places where our shows are available through podcasts, which means you can download them. You can learn more about building a classic radio collection of your own. You can contact me. You can find our social media links, and you can buy me a copy. And if you'd like to help us acquire additional classic radio collections to bring to you here, that's what the Buy Me a Copy money goes for. And I appreciate all of your help in that regard. It's greatly appreciated. Please thank this station, support their advertisers. Their kindness is what brings us to you here each and every Monday. And tell your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite station.